A very good morning to you. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. I'm Jeffrey Ozan. As always, it's a full team. Good morning, guys.
Good morning, guys. Well, it's a weekend to the rescue, or the rescue weekend, whichever way you choose to look at it. But indeed, it's a cheery morning right here on the Morning Brief, your perfect morning starter. Welcome. I am Bukola Koka.
And I'm Kaido Kikilo. There is a lot of good news to go around, and we must start on that note, hoping that this will really catch more fire during the week and lead to more good news, because I'm really expecting some more good news this week. But we could start in northeast Nigeria, where troops of a joint task force, Northeast, it's Operation Hadinkai, have rescued 360 abductees from a heavily fortified Jas enclave in the Mandara Mountain area of southern Borno State. The military described this operation as one of the most significant hostage rescue missions conducted in a Northeast theater in recent times. And 360, you have to think about that. That is not 10, it's not 50, it's not 100. It's 360. I guess you're wondering from where? Who are these people? Well, we can also tell you that abductees from Ngoshe, that was in March, are amongst those rescued. So they spent March, April, May.
And a few days in June.
Exactly, in the kidnappers' den, or the terrorist den, to be more appropriate, until they were released. So you can imagine just how much joy they're feeling right now. A statement by the military, however, said that 2 infants died during the process of the abduction, I should say, because of the harsh weather conditions. So that is a sad part of this good news. But in all, 360 people have been rescued. I mean, look at them. Most of them young girls, women, mostly vulnerable people.
I'm just happy we can interrogate and investigate the process itself. This plus the one that happened in Oyo. But the most important for me is that this is a needed good news. For many weeks, we've been lamenting, we've been crying, we've been screaming, we've been holding the powerful account to do their job. So for me, however this was done, whether they were rescued, ransom was paid, whatever happened, the most important part is that they are back, and our hearts and our thoughts are with the families of the 2 children that lost their lives in the process of this rescue operation. But when all this has, simmered and everywhere is calm, we'll begin to interrogate the entire process. But for now, I think every Nigerian who loves his or our country just wants people rescued. We can now question other things a lot more later, because I agree with people who say we must be united against terror. It's not time for politics, it's not time for all of those things. But we will not fail to hold the powerful accountable. The ease, Bukola and Kade have always said, the ease of mass abduction is what disturbs me. It's not the abduction itself, as much as that is bad. It's the ease with which people are. Look at the number, 300 plus. So we're happy they are back, and I want to stay in that happy zone and that happy mood for today.
Well, yesterday I didn't know whether to jump for joy, dance, or just rejoice, whichever way it was. But it came with a lot of relief, news of the release of 362. That's quite a number. And I was looking, regardless, I was looking for details on the story, to find out whether there was any combat between the Operation Hadinkai, I believe, troops of Operation Hadinkai helped secure the release of this one, whether there was any engagement with terrorist elements, with, the bandits in the Mandara Mountains. I believe this was where the operation took place, but that wasn't quite there. And so we're wondering, what level of engagement that led to this, what intelligence, got the release of this one. So it would have been cheery to read also that those responsible for this kidnap have been brought to book. At this point, it's just gratitude all the way, but there are others still in the terrorist camp. Those, according to the senator, representing Borno South, kidnapped along Burate Road. They're still in travelers, I believe, they're still in the terrorist camp. And I wonder if the 42 kidnapped in Askira Uba in Borno State are also part of this, but we'll get confirmation on that as well. Now, it would have been, a weekend of rejoicing and a Monday morning, extraordinaire if the Orire local government abductees were also rescued. But we're watching and waiting, and we'll mount this pressure on the administration, on the security forces, to also ensure that those people are rescued. And speaking of rescue, it was also a weekend to rejoice when we saw that the sister of former Minister of Power, Mrs. John Paul, and her twins have been rescued. Police released footage of that rescue mission, and it was quite telling to see what victims go through in kidnappers' den. Now, our prayers as Nigerians now is never to be kidnapped, among many other prayers. But we're grateful to the security forces and these people who have been, arrested. There were some arrests by Operation Fasanyama over the weekend as well of, suppliers of, weapons to terrorists. So these people that are arrested, those that were arrested from the kidnap, story of the John Pauls, should be debriefed. Those who have turned Nigeria into a killing field and a kidnapping industry must be brought to book. And the administration should review this, de-radicalization program for bandits, those who have killed, those who have, made others go through agony, those who have turned families into hollow households should be made to face the wrath of the law. Those who have set Nigeria back in any way, saboteurs of this country in any way or form, must be made to face the music and given a date with their maker, as Jeffrey always says. But this is very, very cheery news, guys.
Yes, nothing less than that, but perhaps something more. We look forward to that. But let's take a listen, at least, to the family members who spoke, particularly the mother, or in this case, the grandmother of the twins, speaking about this experience and the outcome. Take a listen.
Busayo, Olaide, Toby Peter, and Paul. I'm
the mother of Olaide, who gave birth to her twin sons, Peter and Paul. I'm delighted that they have been rescued, and I give thanks to God for showing mercy on me after I cried for days asking him for help. And now my daughter is reunited with her family along with her sons. I pray for God's intervention to resolve the issue of kidnappings so that all those still in captivity are rescued and safely returned. Honestly, I felt sorrow and grief when I learnt about my daughter and her son's kidnap, but today I'm grateful they're now back home safe. All I can ask is for God's divine intervention concerning our country and government. May God guide our leaders right and solve our challenges as a people.
Wọn ò sì ní sì ṣe Ọlọ́run ó gbóhùn ẹ̀bẹ̀ wa lórí ará yòókù irú rẹ̀ ò sì ní kú lẹ́yìn ìfẹ́ ní ìkankan mọ́ lágbára Ọlọ́run.
The mother of the woman, the relative or the sister to the former Minister of Power, Mr. Adelabu, were great. I have seen all kinds of comments, guys, about how that operation happened. Some people were saying the state. As I said, I'll remain in the state of being grateful for any rescue because we've seen a lot of abductions this period. We will interrogate every one of these much later, but I'm sure for the families of every person who has been in captivity, whether it's for a day or for a year, for a month, what they just want now is just a huge sigh of relief, and then every other thing can follow. So we've had all kinds of comments from people saying this looks staged. Why has it been filmed? I'm not sure. I'm also sure they released that video because they've been under a lot of pressure as to getting the work done. People are now commenting around, oh, if you're now poor, what about the poor people in the bush and all of that? I'm hoping that will be the icing on the cake to get those people out of the bush, because I think this one, the abductors kept them in a particular place within the town, and they were caught up in their very devious and heinous act of kidnapping people. But we're hopeful that this is going to be, we're going to have good news pretty soon. I also understand that the Air Force is also, parading with aircraft and drones and all of that. We don't even need all of those details because these are security issues. Just get the job done, all right? Get the job done. When all of the job is done, or the ones that have a lot of pressure is done, we'll now begin to interrogate. But we must continue to ask questions, and I will not stop asking that question. And Kayode asked the question, I think Thursday last week. Throughout the weekend, I've been thinking, it hasn't left my mind. Why is it easy that Lakurawa, Boko Haram, all of these people just find Nigeria as an easy, as it's a place of, they call it ease of doing their very wicked business? That has not left my mind. And in addition to that, I've always raised the question of the ease of abduction. That is the next phase of interrogation, because Nigeria should not be a place where terrorists can do business with ease. Guys.
Absolutely. And two things that we must touch on before we shift gears. First, what happened to the terrorists for the Borno one, and then the criminals. They're calling them urban bandits now for the Adelabu family's abduction. We understand, according to police, that two of the kidnappers for the Adelabu family were killed, eliminated, neutralized, whatever term you want to use. Some were arrested, are being interrogated. There are bits and pieces coming out here and there, but of course we'll give you the full details as soon as they are official. For the Borno incident, it is said that a lot of the terrorists abandoned and fled while some surrendered. And it's quite interesting just, again, how these things are usually coordinated. So we really hope that lessons are learned to ensure the safe return, release, rescue of the students and teachers and pupils who were kidnapped in Orire local government area of your state. But we'll give you more details. But we'll shift gears now and bring you how the front pages are reporting the big stories in a moment as Mr. Dayo Akintobi joins us. Stay with us. Mr. Dayo Akintobi is a public affairs analyst, is right there with us in our Lagos studio. Mr. Akintobi, good morning.
Very good morning to you. Good morning, Nigeria. Thank God it's Monday.
Thank God. I think this is one of those mornings you can actually say good morning.
Yes, it is a very good morning indeed, because there's cheery news over the weekend.
Yes. I mean, we're Oliver Twist. We want more of those good news, but at least we have something to deal with as we look forward to the others. So let's jump right into the front pages. I want to begin with the good news, right? Before we then go to other stories. I wouldn't call them bad news necessarily. And this is Nigeria's front page that we're starting with. Military rescues 360 captives in Borno. Air Force intensifies search for abducted Oyo school children and teachers. So that's the big story on the front page. And as you would expect, this story will be milked, Mr. Akintobi, because we had weeks upon weeks of bad news.
Absolutely.
How are you treating this? Especially because the big news, or good big news, or big good news as the case may be, but they are also the ones we're still expecting.
Yes, indeed. Well, this is cherry news on the one hand because, first of all, these people in Borno had been there for quite a while. Yeah, my understanding is they'd been there since March. And, it was getting to a point of diminishing returns in terms of hope that they would be brought back because they had been there so long. But when you look at the sheer quantum, the sheer number, 360, and I think 205 of them were women and 150 something were little children. And it's just heart-wrenching to think of what they endured in 3 months of captivity. But all's well that ends well. We're glad that they've been able to come back. I believe they said 2 infants might have lost their lives in the process of that period of captivity, but it's a net gain that we've got them back. First of all, it boosts the morale of this fight against terrorism. It lets us know that all hope is not lost, and there's still great potential for us to be able to combat this scourge and actually score wins. Now, the other thing I like about what happened in Borno is the fact that it negates the argument that there are different standards for different Nigerians in terms of when you look at the Ibadan rescue, how quickly it happened, you know.
June 3rd, then June 6th, they were rescued.
Absolutely, it happened so quickly that already there was beginning to be some rancor in terms of the fact that, oh, is it because they were elite? You put more firepower and more resolve to rescuing them because they come from prominent background. But here we have ordinary Nigerians in Oyo State who've been there much longer than the Adelabu family. But when you look at it and you now juxtapose that against Borno, who are also ordinary Nigerians, it negates that argument that some people are more privileged than others. So I'm happy that it happened at the same time. So it creates a sort of balance that negates any notion of bias that, oh, because these were important people, we put more priority to rescuing them. But the Borno rescue goes to show it is not so. Now, when you look at 360, the logistical challenge of being able to go in there and get that many people out with minimum casualties, you know, to the victims themselves, I think a lot of kudos should go to the military. I've always been of the opinion that our military is an efficient fighting force. They're well trained. I think there are issues maybe of morale, of funding, but I don't doubt their capability and competence. I mean, if you look at some of their history in terms of peacekeeping missions overseas and some of the things they've achieved over the years, you know we have a solid military. So when you look at this insecurity problem and how it has plagued us and how long it has lasted, there's a disconnect between the capability of our military and you know what non-state actors are able to achieve within the country. So I put it down to an issue of the morale is not there, perhaps the funding is not right. I don't doubt much about their training and their capability, but this thing in Borno, which was spearheaded by the army, see the difference between the two is that the Oyo rescue was the police, the Borno rescue was the army.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good shot in the arm for all our security forces that encourages them, that lets us as well, the citizens, know that all hope is not lost and that we should continue to keep hope alive and be encouraged and, you know, continue to encourage our military. I think our military need greater appreciation, not just from government, but from us as well, because they put their lives on the line. Look at another report in Borno, and we saw the hideous video of terrorists going into some military formation, and they actually slaughtered between 5 and 7 military men. We saw their corpses. Looks like some of them were even beheaded. And this happened in the very same Borno as well. That kind of thing can be demoralizing, you know, especially to the military itself, that, you know, they put themselves out for us on a daily basis and they themselves are not safe.
Well, the administration has been explaining to support what you're saying that the Borno rescue and the Oyo kidnapper are not the same, and, you know,
no, they're not.
There are efforts ongoing to rescue the Oriri abductees, and we hope that there are significant outcomes from that process, just as we have seen from Borno. But speaking about, you know, the different approach or the results that we're now seeing, I wonder what is different. Let's go to the Abuja Inquirer to establish that now. You see on the front page of the Abuja Inquirer this morning how police traced notorious TikTok kidnappers to Abuja hideout, seized 211 rounds of ammunition from wanted suspect. And you find the details on the inside pages of the Abuja Inquirer and try to see the page here. It begins on the front page, actually, and it continues into page 2. But Mr. Akitobi, it appears as if, there's some renewed vigor that we're now seeing with the security operatives. We always call them out on this, set to ask how it's easy to get to those who, expose welfare issues in the military, or those who demand accountability of government from one issue or the other, using their mobile phones and posting on social media. But we hadn't quite seen that, with those who cause trouble, chaos, or mayhem, and we're now seeing, a different approach with this particular story from the FCT. Does that resonate with you as well?
Well, remember that a long while back, this notion of linking your NIN to your phone was sold to us as a security initiative, that it would enable government to know who you are, where you are, what you represent, what you're doing, and hold you accountable. But in the past, we've never really seen that being brought to bear on the fight against terrorism. But recently, I think there's coming to an awareness that technology is actually here to help. In as much as it also helps the other side, that it also can help the law enforcement people to be able to be more efficient at doing their jobs. And so you see a concerted effort now to begin to exploit the capabilities of technology. Because remember, kidnappers, those kidnapping for ransom, they have to communicate some kind of way. And as long as that communication is occurring through a device, a mobile device, a laptop, anything that has radio waves, it's trackable, it's traceable. I think in the past, you actually used to have to get a court order because you have to be careful about violating people's rights. There's constitutional rights, there's human rights, there's privacy issues. So allowing law enforcement to willy-nilly be able to eavesdrop on people, surveil people on the merest suspicion is always questionable in terms of the violation of people's rights. So you had to balance it to some extent to where a neutral arbiter like a judge would look at your probable cause. What reason do you have to believe that this person could be a kidnapper, could be holding people in captivity? A neutral judge would have to look at that to make sure that, everything was above board, and this wouldn't lead to the violation of an innocent person's right. So there has to be a duty of care, in spite of the fact that, you really want to rescue any victim and you really want to put down any kind of criminality. But you still also have to balance that against the rights of the innocent. So it's kind of a tricky balancing act to be able to deploy technology without restraint versus having to have, dot the I's and cross the T's and make sure that everything is above board in a way that you won't be violating anyone's rights. So that probably hampered the use of technology. And I think now they've probably liberalized some of the procedures and processes to where they might not necessarily have to get a court order per se to be able to deploy technology now. Once they've made a case to their superior officers and those ones are convinced that there is probable cause to believe that a crime is in process or is about to be carried out, then approvals will be given, and then you can begin to track phones, you can begin to eavesdrop on conversations, you can begin to the point now that they actually can even look at your social media accounts. They can look at who you're chatting with, they can look at your TikTok, look at your Facebook, and they don't necessarily have to wait to get a court order to do it. So that has accelerated the investigative process and might be giving rise to some of the successes we are seeing now.
We hope it stays that way.
We hope it stays that way and even improves.
Yeah.
Well, I hope the lawyers will be able to give the proper perspective on that, because sometimes security agencies, when you give them latitude, they go rogue. The bad element. So the rule of law.
Yes,
in the midst, no matter what, the rule of law is the rule of law. There's a reason it's called the rule of law. It's never convenient.
Yes.
But whatever has to be done to help Nigerians is important, but not abuse. Let's go to the Vanguard newspaper. The Vanguard newspaper is leading with something totally away from politics, and this affects everyone, and that has to do with cooking gas. Why cooking gas will remain scarce, expensive. A domestic demand outstrips supply. Producers stick to export market. Outlook remains uncertain, according to industry experts. You know, Mr. Kitobi, when cooking gas, for instance, is not like vehicles, not like vehicles that use hydrocarbon, where there's something called demand destruction. When, for instance, there's consistent hike in price or sustained hike in price over time, consumers begin to look for alternative. They could use EV, they could use CNG and all of that, but with cooking gas, it's either you do that or you go to charcoal. And I don't know.
Or firewood.
Or firewood or something of that nature. But what do you make of this story? When the alternative is quite limited.
I concur with Bukola here that smoky jollof rice cooked on firewood
It's better.
It's sweeter than gas cooked jollof rice. But correct me if I'm wrong. Nigeria is a country that is blessed with gas and just has a little bit of oil. Why should there be scarcities of gas? I know it has to go through a process. It's not the gas that we flare or the gas that comes out of the ground.
We're actually a gas nation.
That's what I said.
200 trillion cubic feet in our reserve.
Yes,
our oil is, let's just approximately 36 to 39 billion.
Yes.
Gas is 200 trillion cubic feet, according to the last data from NUPRC.
Yes, so we're a gas nation that has a little bit of oil. And so what it takes to now convert the natural gas to what we know as cooking gas and CNG, it has to go through a refining process. So it's almost similar to the issue we have with petrol, that you get crude raw and you refine it to make it petrol. Same way, NLNG and all these other people get raw gas. It still has to go through a process before it becomes cooking gas, and that's where the breakdown occurs. I believe that up till now, most of that refining process is done overseas. So we are still facing the same issues with what we faced with petrol, is that you have a raw resource. The ability to refine it, to make it usable at the retail level is still lacking in capacity. So we will always run into these kind of things because our domestic gas supply is now dependent on issues that relate to global oil crises, wars in other countries, Russia, Ukraine, US, Israel versus Iran, will always affect the flow and the supply of anything that's import dependent. And to the best of my knowledge, we're not producing enough refined cooking gas in Nigeria that will meet the demand. So absolutely, the first thing that happens is when demand outstrips supply, it gets expensive. So the last time I heard, I can't even remember how much they said a kg of cooking gas is now. It's over 2,000. It's over 2,000. That's absolutely not affordable. Absolutely. To the average, ordinary working class Nigerian, 2,000. I believe the smallest canister of cooking gas is 5 kg. Thereabouts, the really small one. I'm not talking about the 12.5 kg that is about the height of my knee.
There's a medium one, and then there's the really small one. We used to fill that one for about 3,500 before, but it has really
that's about
gone
10,000 now.
Yeah.
And how long does it last you? How many meals can you cook with that really little one before it runs out?
Maybe average use 2 weeks.
So it's not affordable, and that's why we saw in the news the other day that people are now repairing to things like charcoal, and I made the joke that I didn't even know charcoal still existed, and when I go home that day, somebody said, Mr. Kitobi, how could you say that on air? Don't you go to barbecues? Which kind of old school man are you? We use charcoal on our barbecue grill. How can you be saying you haven't seen charcoal since you were a little kid? There's plenty of charcoal everywhere, but even if there's plenty of charcoal everywhere, it's not convenient to use to cook. It takes too long, it's messy. Who wants to be involved in that at this point? So you look at it and you say, where is that gap coming from? How can we have a plethora of gas supply and yet we can't supply? It should be a free resource. As much gas as we have, it should be piped into everybody's homes free of charge. We shouldn't even have to buy cylinders. You know, in places like the UK and the US, they piped it into your homes. You don't. Cylinders are obsolete, so we're still far behind the times if we're buying cylinders. As much gas as we have, they should be able to pipe it directly into our homes and meter it in such a way that according to your usage, you pay the same way we do with electricity. That's the global best practice now. So we're using an antediluvian system if we're still talking about gas canisters in 2026. You know, so I don't know. I've got to put it all at the hands of government again at the end of the day. Although I think there's a private sector element in the whole refining process as well. But anything that deals with imports, you know, there's licenses to be procured, there's shipping time to factor into consideration. And to me also, the major problem is the exchange rate. If you're importing anything, at this point it costs more than it used to cost, and salaries are not increasing commensurately, so it's going to pinch.
Exactly. So exchange rate is what a lot of people are not looking at.
Yeah.
If the exchange rate is down, a lot of things would naturally come down.
Absolutely.
Because for hydrocarbon, for instance, the biggest component of some of these things, like PMS, is crude, and it's priced in dollars. Gas as well, even though we have a lot of it. Our infrastructure is not as developed as you rightly stated. I think we have midstream, downstream gas infrastructure fund or something of that nature. Their job is basically, if you, Bukola, any one of us wants to get into that gas space, the counter fund, so government comes in by equity to accelerate that. So there's a lot going on that has to be done. I'm even reading that UAE, Saudi Arabia, a couple of other countries, because of what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz, are now trying to expand their pipeline across the peninsula, so it goes straight to the Red Sea or to something close to the Mediterranean, so that when Hormuz goes rogue, they can quickly...
There can be alternatives.
Alternatives. I'm not hearing as much as should be within the Nigerian context, besides the fact that Dangote refinery is there and we expect more. One thing we have achieved, although, is the fact that I think we are close to energy security, so all of this is not impact us in terms of pricing, in terms of availability, but pricing is killing.
Yes.
And, you know, just to add that, we have not been having that up-close conversation with the Minister of State for Petroleum, Minister of State for Gas,
We're going to wait for a long time.
And the Superintending Minister, you know, being the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. These are the questions that we should put through to them. And, of course, the NLNG, you know, as well.
Yes.
The contradictions still remain, and they're not beautiful to see. There's a saying that the child of a meat seller should not have bones on his or her plate, but that's what we have here. A butcher's child having bones, sometimes nothing to even eat, because a gas nation should not be going through this.
No.
The Guardian newspaper leads with something we may not be paying attention to, but I'm glad the Guardian has brought it up. Debt, oil output volatility weigh on fiscal outlook despite higher revenue. So the government is saying we're about to do 40 trillion naira revenue. Maybe we'll augment it with about 14 trillion naira. And, you know, the NRS is bullish, you know, saying, in fact, they have a new headquarters, new infrastructure. So naturally, what will follow, to whom much is given, much more is expected in revenue. But we're seeing, yes, absolutely,
I like that phrase.
Much more is expected. But we're seeing more borrowings naturally. And this government has always boasted that, you know, our debt ratio is solid. But with more borrowings, that will impact on that. There's oil output volatility as well that is impacting on our projection. So while we're talking security or insecurity, as the case may be, a lot of people are also watching our budget implementation and all those projections. Are we able to meet it? Because that's also economic insecurity.
Yes, there's more money coming in, but first of all, the issue
in Naira terms.
The issue this government has had to contend with is that it inherited quite a bit of debt and is servicing that debt, and it's taking on more debt of its own. And in studying the budget and its implementation, and I think we're running maybe 3 budgets concurrently at the same time, what you discover is that recurrent expenditure continues to escalate. Every other day, the administration is setting up new agencies, new departments, new arms of government to do multifarious things, and all these things are a drain on resources. So I kind of took a close look at the budget, and I saw that that recurrent expenditure is a problem because it keeps rising. And we keep talking about cutting government spending in terms of, trying to at least balance the budget or reduce the deficit. Now, one of the key ways, there are two ways you reduce the deficit. Either you increase your revenue or you decrease your expenditure. And we've done everything possible to increase revenue. Of course, we've got this windfall now from the crisis in subsidy removal as well, as well as the crisis in the Middle East. But much of our oil is forward sold already. First of all, remember that we are in JVs. So we only get like half of what we pull up, because our joint venture partners take their share. Yeah. And once they've taken their share, what's left to us is infinitesimal. Well, not infinite. Okay, so let's say it's half.
We're not doing JVs. We're doing more PSCs.
Which is
more like, go take the risk and give us our share.
Okay.
Because our cash calls, we didn't perform too well.
Okay, but our own share is what? Is much less than the total.
Yes.
Because they are taking the risk.
Yes.
So it actually even reduces what comes to us, of which we've now forward sold quite a bit of it. And, then we're not actually even producing as much as even our OPEC quota. So there's some amounts that are shut in. Government is overspending itself and burdened by debt that inherited and burdened by debt that it is taking on. So without a doubt, there's going to be that lacuna somewhere where expectations cannot be met. Even if the assumptions are moderate, which we've always said the assumptions are exaggerated or they're a bit overly optimistic. But assuming the assumptions are within reason, they might even be difficult to be met based on the existential realities that I've just talked about. So government is going to lurch from one fiscal crisis to the next. That is the truth. Because the revenue side doesn't match the expenditure side. That's the bottom line. So you look at it and you say, okay, so what can we do? I mean, so we've removed subsidy. The federal government, in its wisdom, the president has channeled most of the subsidy savings to the governors. We've not seen commensurate action from the governors in terms of the additional monies. One state is getting 10 times what it used to get. And you think with a windfall like that, the only silver lining on the horizon that I see in terms of the subsidy savings is that salaries are being paid. You don't hear of states owing that much anymore. All the states in the past who couldn't pay salaries. Borrowing by the states has reduced.
Yes, reduced.
Absolutely. So that's one silver lining from subsidy savings. But by and large, once oil is what we depend on primarily for our revenue, even the revenue service that's collecting taxes, even customs that's collecting import duties, when you strip it all away, at the end of the day, everything revolves around this oil matter. And as long as that oil is still subject to the vagaries of the international market, we will always continue to be held hostage to matters we have little control over. But the ones that we do have control over, things like recurrent expenditure by government that we can actually curtail, we should make more of a concerted effort to focus in that direction to reduce spending.
But speaking of which, Mr. Secretary, have you seen prudence besides the challenges with oil output and volatility? What about accountability? What about prudence, against the backdrop of reports that, perhaps the administration has denied of deductions, from budget and, the very controversial Nigeria Development Update report of the World Bank on Nigeria, which also captured those deductions. So have you seen those also? And if there was more prudence and accountability, would we be talking about budget deficits, and all these fiscal responsibility challenges that we have, time and again with our appropriation?
I think the notion of prudence in government is more of a fantasy, really. I haven't really seen any government since 1999 that has shelved profligate ways to be more austere government in and of itself is a money spending enterprise. To justify its existence, government by its very nature exists to spend. And that is why you look at government is the largest employer of labor. The federal government is the largest employer of labor in the country. Can you imagine what its wage bill must be? So government spending is not necessarily about SUVs and private jets and, ESTA code to go overseas. There are some expenditures that look basic but are still humongous. So why don't we start with looking at how we cut the payroll, which of course will be politically unpopular, to begin to reduce, government employment, the number of people that are employed by government, and starting to cut the number of aides. I saw one governor the other day who appointed 115 aides to do what? Prudence is not in government's nature unless they are compelled to. And to do that, you need to have a proactive assembly that is keeping them in check and balance. But when the assembly is in bed with the executive, you can't expect that there will be any check or balance that would restrain, the executive from being extravagant, because it looks like it's free money. It's there for the taking. I mean, once it gets into the FAC account and the disbursements are made, there's no real check on how that money is spent. So think about it, Bukola. 20 million naira appears in your account tomorrow and no terms and conditions of how you spend it, and you don't have to pay it back. I foresee you being in the Palms Mall tomorrow. Because
trust me, I have other plans, Mr. Kitsobi. If that 20 million does come in.
That's the default position of most human beings. If you see free money, you will spend it. If there's no accountability, what we may choose to spend it on is different, but we will spend it. I don't think many of us will invest it or spend it.
At the end of the day, what some of us expect to see is real production and productivity. Some of the things that the government will celebrate are mostly what economists call nominal resets that happen, not as though there's really no boom in terms of those sectors. For instance, the NGX is going to be one of the things they will tout, but it's a hybrid of nominal reset and earnings, meaning that inflation played a role, devaluation played a role, but investor confidence has also come in. But if you look at the Q1 capital importation that was released to us, is more hot money that came in. The FDI itself was less than 200 out of the $10 billion or so. FDI was something a range of maybe less than 200 million naira.
So what you're saying
is the promised investments are not here yet.
They have not arrived. And the bigger problem now is that the macro is looking in some elements good, but the micro has not tailored down. The only language the government is explaining to the people is the waiting game. And I don't know how they're going to sustain that wait is coming conversation because of the buffer that was not put in place for the shocks that we are all feeling.
So in other words, if they were spending this money on setting up industries and
if everybody was like Dangote,
that employs people, that creates employment,
like Dangote,
then we wouldn't look at it as frivolous spending. We look at it as prudent spending, what you're talking about. So in other words, it's not that the spending is wrong, is that they're spending it on the wrong things. They're not spending it in areas that will create productivity, that will create employment, that will lower inflation. And
for instance, we're talking about, gas scarcity, which is where we shouldn't be right now at, this point in our history. Shouldn't we have some form of intervention if government has been known not to be able to manage enterprise, historically in Nigeria? So can't we have some form of intervention in that sector for industrialization, for the production of LPG, CNG, to create employment and to jumpstart the economy.
Exactly the point we're making. Those are the places where we now need those kinds of investments.
Exactly.
Sometimes even the naira being devalued in economic terms sometimes can be good and bad, depending on what you want to achieve with it. So, for instance, now, the same number of units of currency you need to get $1 in Nigeria is almost the same you need to get in South Korea for it. But they did that deliberately so that things will be cheaper, so that the dollars will come in. You have LG, sorry, I'm mentioning brands. There are so many brands you can mention. But now that we've devalued, what are people buying from Nigeria apart from oil? These are the kinds of conversation we should be having to, I'm high on security.
And I find this interesting, really, because there's always that debate for capital versus recurrent. Some will tell you, Yes, spend on capital, but when it's time to maintain the capital, the people you've not taken care of in recurrent will pull it down. So they argue for human capital. They argue that it's those same people. Imagine you build a bridge. Who's going to maintain the bridge? Who's going to sweep the bridge? It is the recurrent. It's people that are earning from it. So there's usually that back and forth. And they tell you, first, let's feed people. Gas is very expensive. You need the recurrent also to pay people so they're able to buy gas. So I actually find these economic conversations interesting. Yeah. Do you spend more on capital? Oh yeah, spend more on capital. Recurrent say, well, you're not giving us money, you're just building roads. Okay, let's spend on recurrent. But hey, I think at the end of the day, just do whatever works for you.
Absolutely.
Understanding your situation as a country and be prudent. And
I think we may need to interrogate those bridges that are springing up in many states of the Federation. Right. Some of them are not going to get traffic in the next 10 years. And we also need to interrogate the monies allocated to those bridges as well to find out if indeed, it checks out.
That's a prudence.
Cost. Yes, that's another prudence matter that we've been talking about.
Bridge is just a typology. I mean, I'm talking infrastructure. It could be gas infrastructure. It could be needed infrastructure. It could be
power.
Power, exactly.
Power, for instance. There are so many things that has to be done for it to trickle to the person down the street. Because the argument is always, you come with this big dashboard, reserve, NGX, NEL. There are so many big things. But these SMEs that we talk about, they are the biggest drivers of the informal economy, if you will, and those ones have to be attended to, because that's how it gets to us. Absolutely. At the end.
I think we have time for one more paper, right?
Do we?
Let's get to New Telegraph newspaper, and there are quite a number of stories on the front page. If you go atop beneath the nameplate and the big story as well, it looks like it's time for bragging rights for Mr. President, Mr. Kitobi. Tinubu to Nigerians. FG won't surrender to terrorists, bandits. And we see a host of riders there. It says, June 12 heroes' sacrifices should inspire building a greater nation. Urges youth to resist being used for thuggery, violence, others at campaigns. And there's this one that's interesting. Akpabio. This is ascribed to him, the Senate President. Prayer saved Nigeria's democracy. Faith will sustain it. I'm interested in knowing what you think there. And there's another one. Hold on, Jeffrey. BFN urges Christians to match prayers, fasting with action. Get PVC. That's instructive. And lawyers, Southwest can disagree on state of emergency on insecurity.
I don't know why whenever I hear my former governor probably speak, I'm always worried. Because I'm like, oh God, what is he saying again?
He shoots from the hip.
Being on his media team is a lot of work. What is he going to say?
What is he going to say?
He's already preparing a statement, thinking, how do we? But hey, he's just a happy-go-lucky fellow, just goes there. And
what is he going to go off on that I have to go and fix?
Are you calling him a loose cannon?
The prayers.
He tries to be a jolly good fellow. He tries to make light of, maybe it's his personality, make light of even the most serious things, and then something comes out wrong. That's my problem.
Let's take it to the secretary. Did prayer save Nigeria's democracy?
I align more with what Khan had to say, which is that, pray, but back it with action. I think prayer and faith without action is pointless. That's my view.
That's what he's saying, actually, because faith without works is dead. So if he says faith will sustain it, he's also saying work to sustain it.
No, but did prayer really save Nigeria's democracy? Faith without works is dead.
Absolutely.
I know a lot of people prayed during Abacha. People prayed.
Yes,
but the
there was
sacrifice
some
of journalists at that time.
Yes, there was
work.
Civic action.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So maybe prayer backs the faith with action, and then we had democracy.
Mr. Kitobi, what's here?
Someone has to play the devil's advocate.
Okay. Yeah. No. Khan is right. Is perfectly on point when they say that go and get your PVC. At the end of the day, real change is going to come out by inputs, and we're a bit too disconnected from the political process. Look at how many votes it took to get a president into office. Right now, I would venture to say that just about every government, both national and subnational, we are being governed by minorities, by people who are put in by a minority of the populace, which is not what democracy is all about. So we need to be more engaged. And yes, when we go and get these PVCs, it's okay to go to church, it's okay to go to mosque. We should have strong faith, and we should rely on our faith to see us through tough times. But we also have to apply ourselves. And the low-hanging fruits, the easiest thing you can begin to do to participate is to go get that PVC. People are still telling me up to today that they won't vote in the upcoming elections, that they don't see it having any effect. And I keep saying that's a misguided position. Because if everyone who's saying we're not going to vote, turn out and vote, they can swing the election. So, yes, Nigeria, let's pray. We need to pray. We need to have faith. But beyond prayer, we need to back it up with action. And we also need to back it up with integrity, with honesty, with hard work, with thrift, with prudence. Prayer is one aspect, but there's also a human aspect that is required of us as well. We have a role to play, and there are key things. Love your neighbor. You know, on the one hand, I see many people praying, but while they're praying, they're sticking daggers in the back of their neighbor. So there's a contradiction between the notion of, you know, faith and the notion of thrift, but they don't have to be mutually exclusive.
Right.
They can work together.
There you go.
For the good.
I think this is a very important part of the conversation. And getting your PVC is not enough.
No.
Because I hear get your PVC. So what we basically do is we rush to elections. We all participate as much as we can, and then we go to bed.
Yeah.
And 4 years after, get your PVC. No, what happens between that election and the next election?
Exactly.
We must get involved as well.
Absolutely.
Give them close marking.
Yes.
I know there's a notion of us versus them, people versus government, but it will never work.
No.
It has to be working with the government, not against the government. So get your PVCs. But the work doesn't end there. I hate to break it to you. The work starts right after you've now exercised your right to vote. You must ensure that you give them the script to play. We always say they're political actors. Yeah. If you don't give them the script to play, they will play any script they find, and usually it ends up being a very
and
tragic
it doesn't
movie.
end with, you know, working with government and doing more. It also continues with the advocacy on ensuring that you vote your conscience and you shun the monies that will be given to you inevitably in this election to induce your voting choice. And Mr. Akitobi, I wonder if it is the same persons who get their vote, get their PVC and will vote their conscience that will be on the streets, on the queues voting on that day, as against those who will get 5,000 naira, 10,000 naira and vote the agent who has asked them to vote a particular party. I'd like your thoughts on that as well.
Without a doubt, inducement is still a very key part of the electoral process. And it's not just even the 5,000. There are other ways that inducements occur, including promises for future appointments, future contracts, there are various ways. And inducements without out-and-out vote buying, it's just as insidious when you are inducing a particular type of behavior. But I'd say it's an almost even split between those who are going out there to vote their conscience, because there are enough Nigerians who are politically aware now, who recognize the nexus between the vote they cast and the quality of services. But most of them don't come out on
election day.
That is the issue.
Yeah.
Is that those who are
the
aware,
elite.
Yes, those who are aware are more docile, and there's apathy among those, probably for reasons of insecurity, intimidation. On election day, there's a sense that, there might be violence, there might be ballot snatching, there might be various things that discourage the elite from coming out. Even in more upper class communities, you find that there's a fear of actually coming out to cast that vote. And that's what now allows those who are voting for pecuniary purposes to have an edge over those who will be voting their conscience. So INEC seems to be trying to position itself better for 2027, both in terms of security, in terms of logistics, all the things that make the electoral process flow. But we, as journalists, should continue to encourage viewers, readers of the newspaper, the general public. We should continue
the electorate.
Yeah, the electorate, to make them aware of the importance of not just collecting PVC, but using it on the day. And then, as Kayode has said, after you've used it on the day, continue to be engaged in the process so that they don't go to sleep they don't act in Abuja and the State House of Assembly as if we are asleep. And what they do, they can get away with because nobody's looking.
Yeah, exactly. So we also need to highlight consequence of voting the right or the wrong people. Because every 4 years we run around to say, go and vote. What exactly are we voting for? That's why I can't wait for all of the noise to be over so that, I don't know how many presidential candidates we have yet, maybe up to 20, 18, I'm not sure of the number. So when we're clear on the exact number and who is standing as candidate for what party, some were very clear, some were not sure. As soon as we get that picture, we'll begin to interrogate at our level, at the national level. But let's not forget that there's local government. There's state government. I don't even know which is worse. Because the problem is that the governors or the government at the subnational level are controlling the local government. They won't allow them to breed some of these governors. They are still having issues with the president over the issue of Jack, to allow those guys to do their work in terms of the money. Even with Supreme Court judgment, it's still not there. Then the issue of the legislature at the subnational level, I don't even know which is worse, because those ones, with greatest respect, are literal appendages of the governor. How high do you want them us to jump? They jump. How low do you want? That's how they're just almost puppets as houses of assembly. That's why one individual instead can control them and decide their fate. So that's why some of us are screaming about independence of the Independent National Electoral Commission and the rule of law. I like election upset, not because I prefer ruling party losing or opposition winning in that sense. No, I just like the fact that you know your fate is in the hands of the people. If you misbehave, you're out. And all of that. But there's a story I want us to touch before we let you go, Mr. Akintobi. New Telegraph, if we have time. NLC, just above the nameplate. See, Joe Ajero there has been mixing in action. I heard they were asking for 1 million naira as minimum wage. ILO, NLC accuses Nigerian of systematic assault on workers' rights, union freedom. What do you make of this? Add that to their 1 million naira.
NLC has dragged the federal government to some international body over ILO. This. ILO, yes, to go and complain.
Their own body.
Yes, yes, the international thing of their own organization. Yeah, and they say that the government has consistently reneged on agreements that it has made with labor over the years, and that when you look at the plight of the working Nigeria, and I think minimum wage today is 70,000 naira, which we fought and struggled to get that from 30. But when you look at what inflation has done and what devaluation of naira has done to people's buying power, the 70,000 naira is infinitesimal compared to what it would take to have a good quality of life. So NLC is saying it will take 1 million naira. And of course, government is going to say, we can't afford, if we were to pay every worker 1 million, even just those who work in the government will be bankrupt. They
won't be able to buy gas, Mr.
And you'll be able to cook jollof rice.
Exactly.
That's not
charcoal.
That's not. But anyway, no. But on a more serious note, labor is key, and I think that any labor that doesn't have strife with government is in cahoots with government. So I think the strife is good because it means labor is on its toes, is fighting for the rights and welfare of workers. And government will always be trying to undermine that one way or another. Apart from political power of labor, then there's the issue of funding. If you acquiesce to all their demands, you won't have money to do anything else. So, but this thing about this accusation of systematic abuse that they're leveling against the federal government, it's quite a grave accusation. And I'd like to see what the government will say in response. But the notion of 1 million naira minimum wage is not realistic. But labor knows that as well. So it's just an opening gambit. So federal government is saying, we've got 70,000, you're asking for 1 million, we'll probably end up at 90,000 somewhere.
Just pricing like you're in the market.
Like he said, Dudu and Bolia.
But Mr. Kintobi, we'll get there someday. We have to anchor at this point, but I look forward to that time, Mr. Kintobi, when the minimum wage is #1 million and Nigeria is a prime destination for countries.
The million. That's a lot of money.
And the naira is 500 to $1.
Not anymore, Kari and Jeffrey, ₦1 million.
If you convert that to dollars,
I know,
but you know
in dollars, So now the minimum wage in dollar terms should be in the range of maybe $51 or 50 something dollars. When it was 70, when it was 30 naira, the minimum wage 30,000 naira, it was about, let's say, 60. So in dollar terms, it has reduced.
Yes.
Now you add inflation. So you do the real rates, it has even reduced further.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, so if you keep going, I can keep reducing the money for you people.
So let's talk about how the 1 million is possible. I want to hear how it is possible.
I don't know realistic 1 million minimum wage, but they should go way higher so that at least people can go home with something quite reasonable.
The salary
and they can afford life as much as possible, because a PMS price is 1,003 or 1,002, gas is almost 2,000. What else is there? Some food prices are quite high.
That list is long.
Remember my my egg standard egg has not,
so you see,
egg,
you see why we need 1 million now.
So there's a lot going on.
You didn't mention electricity. But there's
Electricity.
good news. There's good news on that. They're going to refund Band-Aid people who didn't get power.
Really?
They're going to refund.
Yeah,
yes,
no, Mr. that's a one-off. Not.
It's okay.
Oh, so I'm going to receive money. I didn't
receive
I didn't send him money, or they are sending.
No, they're giving you token credits when you go and buy. When you buy next one, you see you.
When was the family meeting called?
NERC, NERC announced
Oh, really?
it. Yes.
Yeah.
For I think February and March, 2 months, where they said they had issues with gas supply, and supply was very low in electricity. They ordered the discos to refund those who didn't get.
Okay, I'm going to check my unit.
Oh, Mr. Dayakintobi, thank you for ending this segment on a cherry note for Band-Aid. But others will tell you, let's just remove this band, and everybody should be on the
Let's
same
unband it.
Absolutely.
Mr. Dayakintobi, this has been a great conversation. At least we have cherry stories to talk about, and we look forward to more tomorrow. By the way, the chat is explosive. I mean, the comments on the chat, so you can just go to our YouTube live page and join the conversation, see what people are saying, add your 2 kobo to it, as I say. Mr. Dayakintobi, public affairs analyst, thank you for your time.
My pleasure always. It's a fresh start Monday. Yeah. Rest is over. Let's get out there and build something.
Let's do that, shall we? Speaking of that, we'll take a quick break now, and when we return, we go over to the National Assembly. There's been a pronouncement on the SUV monies usually allocated to members. What is that about exactly? Is this a cycle will continue, or is it stopping in its entirety? Stay with us, we'll be right back.
It's a cherry Monday. We've begun with good news, and it has flowed through. Speaking of good news, we began by celebrating the release of 360 kidnapped victims in Borno State by troops of Operation Hadinkai yesterday. And let's get further insight into this rescue mission. And we have joining us virtually this morning from Borno, the Commissioner for Information and Internal Security in the state, Professor Usman Tar, who joins us virtually this morning. Professor Tar, good morning, sir, and welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning, thank you.
Yeah, so we've been talking quite a lot about this, but we need more insight. Help us confirm that out of this 360 victims that have been rescued, the Ngoshe victims are part of them. And perhaps you want to give us further details into this rescue mission.
Well, acting on credible intelligence from the Directorate of State Services, and also military intelligence, the officers and men of Operation Hadinkai carried out a daring operation that led to the release of 360 victims of the Ngoshe kidnap. And it was a very successful operation. Sadly, we lost 2 children during the operation. Otherwise, it was a very successful operation. And the victims have already been transported to Pulka, where the Ngoshe people are resident now, pending their return to Ngoshe town. We are carrying out health assessment and psychological assessment of the victims. Any moment from now, the governor of Borno State, His Excellency Professor Babagana Umar Azuno, will be visiting the victims in order to share happy moments with them and share their moments of torment and how best the state can provide support and also to forestall any future occurrence. So we are in a celebration mood here in Borno State this morning and yesterday.
Okay, we would like further details into the intelligence that led to this, and of course the reports as far as the terrorists who were in this camp are concerned. We gather that, you know, some of them scampered for safety when the invasion began by troops of Operation Hadinkai. What can you tell us about that?
Well, the report we received from the military shows that the operation was conducted consistent with the laws of armed conflict and the extant laws, military laws here in Nigeria. And care was taken in order to ensure that all the victims were rescued from the terrorists. And in doing so, the military had to cordon the area of operation, and they had to carry out surgical operation, so much so that only 2 victims were lost. And those victims were lost as a result of stress and dehydration, not a stray bullet or something like that. And we also received the good news that a number of the terrorists were also neutralized.
How many specifically?
We can't tell. Battle assessment is ongoing.
Okay. And just before I yield to my colleagues, talk to us about the 44 children kidnapped in Askira Uba, specifically from Musa Primary and Junior Day Secondary School.
Well, the victims are still in the hands of the terrorists, and we don't want to go into the details of how we are going to salvage them, but I can assure you that efforts are ongoing in order to salvage them. And so far, the governor of Borno State has personally visited the community and he commiserated with the people and assured them that all the children, 48 of them then, will be rescued. And after that, 2 more delegations visited the Uba and the people of Musa. And so far, we have received full cooperation from the communities and the traditional ruler of Uba and his councils, members of the council and the local government. They have all given us their full cooperation. And the military unit is already stationed in Musa. And there is ongoing operation around Musa. And we know that the terrorists may have run off with the victims to other locations. So we are leaving, the armed forces are leaving no stone unturned in order to make sure that those victims are returned unconditionally.
Commissioner, let's talk about a bit of auditing and mapping, if you will. Let's talk about, from the record you have, how many people are still in captivity besides the, I think, 40-something children and women that were abducted? Are there others that are still in captivity from Borno State that you are aware of?
Well, we have even the Ngoshe victims. You know, the terrorists have a tendency to keep their victims in different locations and in cells. So the 360 is not the complete number. It's just the ones that we salvaged, rescued from one operation. There may be other victims. It is very difficult to trace, apart from the bulk kidnaps that they did. They also carry out kidnap of individuals on a daily basis, and those individuals were tracing the numbers. So it is unsafe to give a specific number, but we are aware that there may be more victims. But the bulk has been rescued so far, and we will not rest on our oars until the last of our victims is released
So
unconditionally.
In your view, Prof, what makes Borno very susceptible to incidents of terrorism and all of these terrorist activities in that state?
Well, as you know, Borno is the epicenter of the Boko Haram terrorism. And the terrorists carry out these kidnaps in order to fund, in order to, they try to, they try to do hostage negotiation, but we have always refused that. They do that on small scale as well. So Borno is the epicenter of terrorism, but it is safe to also say that this kidnap issue is a national problem. It is not only restricted to Borno. We have the same situation in other locations too. But Borno appears to be endemic because is the center point of counter-insurgency campaign. And we have the terrorists are spread in all over the northern part of the state in small cells. And there is an ongoing operation, hot pursuit operation in order to neutralize them. So wherever there are terrorists, right. Kidnaps do happen. So Borno is not an isolated location.
Well, Prof, I'd like you to speak to these concerns. There are those who believe strongly that this was more of a ransom payment and negotiation with the terrorists to get these people back. What do you have to say to them?
If it is more than a ransom, if it is more than that, then what is it? The Boko Haram insurgency started as a result of ideological mindset of a few individuals who started the campaign. But those individuals have gone. The Boko Haram insurgency has since transmuted into a big business. So that is what is going on right now. And there is no other explanation. But public issues are subject to discourse.
Right.
Other people may bring their arguments, but as far as we are concerned, we are dealing with criminals who are out to vandalize, criminalize, and terrorize our people.
Yeah. So,
and we are not going to reach on our horse.
Indeed. So my question is, in order to rescue these children, it's been said that ransom was paid and the terrorists were negotiated with. So this is not like a rescue mission. This was more of a ransom was paid and they said, okay, come and get these people. Those are the people I'm asking you to speak to, those issues that have been raised about ransom paid.
Who paid the ransom? And the ransom was paid to who? Where is the evidence? We are the operatives on the ground. There was no ransom payment. There was a daring military operation with intelligence support from the DSS that led to rescue our 360 citizens. That is the fact on the ground. If there are any counterfacts, then you can pursue that.
All right. It's important to lay these things out and ensure that all these sides are covered. But I'd like you to speak to the numbers as well. So earlier on, it had been said that 416 were abducted. In fact, videos were put out saying the terrorists were parading or showing the 416 abducted. So I'd like you to speak to that number. 416 was what some had put as a figure, and now 360 rescued. So did some escape, or it was never 416?
We have 416. A few escaped. We have information to the effect that few tried to escape, and in order to dissuade them, the terrorists shot one or two of them. Those that escaped, not all of them returned home. Some of them went to other locations. But the balance, critical mass of the balance of 360 may still be with the terrorists, and the armed forces are working hard to rescue them as well. Don't forget, we also have 48 children that were kidnapped from Musa in Askira Oba local government area. We are talking about two local governments side by side, Goza local government and Askira Oba local government. Goza, Ngoshe, where the 461 were kidnapped, and in Musa, Askira Oba local government area, where 48 were kidnapped.
So what does this
So
do?
that's the number. Pardon?
Right. So I'm glad you've cleared that out. So some may still be in captivity from the 416, separate from even the 48 that were kidnapped in school. But spending 3 months, because March, April, May, some days in June, in terrorist captivity, certainly does something to you. You are spending a full term, literally. The term that will have been spent in school was spent in terrorist captivity. So there are fears of possible indoctrination, God forbid, brainwashing, but also the psychological impact of that. I'm wondering, how is the state planning to handle all of this? Because it's great to hear they've been rescued, but there's a lot of work to be done.
Yes. With regards to the 48 children of Musa, not all of them were school children. The fact shows that after catching some school children, they also went into the town where they, also, kidnapped children that were as young as 1 year old, 2 years old, that were not of full age. It's a very painful situation. We can only imagine the pains of the parents and the communities. We are all in mourning. In order to forestall future occurrence, and also in order to take care of we have a lot of school children right now in Musa. The state government took a decision to relocate them to nearby schools, and they are in school right now. So it's only the Musa victims that are out of school, and as soon as they are released, we are going to organize emergency tutorials for them to enable them catch up, inshallah.
Okay, there's just one more before we wrap up, and this is also a very critical part of the conversation, and it's about the long-term security and stability of areas that are often attacked in Borno. You mentioned Askira Uba, there's Gwoza, there's Beni Sheikh, Malam Fatori. What's the outlook of security in these areas? And the Mandara Mountains, what more enduring can be done to ensure that, these terrorist elements are all eliminated? What's the nature of security in these areas?
Well, there is an ongoing bilateral security operation, tactical operation between the United States of America and the Nigerian Armed Forces, and that has led to huge success. The full details of the victory will be out very soon, but we have seen that the terrorists have already been smoked out of their safe enclaves in the Lake Chad, in the Tumbus, and also the Mandara Mountains and two triangles are also being targeted for decapitation missions. And a lot of the terrorists have already been eliminated from the interim reports that we have. Those that are able to escape, they are also being pursued by the armed forces. So in addition to that, the multinational joint task force of the Lake Chad, a security complex of the Lake Chad basin has also commenced an operation, and the operation is ongoing. So in the fullness of time, this madness will be a thing of the past, inshallah.
Well, we can only hope that that is the case, and in fact, it gets better than that from there. There are more aspects to, explore with you, Professor, including how these terrorist elements, are able to recruit children into their camps. But we'll leave that conversation for another time, and of course, for you and the administration to reflect on. Professor Usman Tar is the Commissioner for Information in Borno State. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much.
Well, there's more on security to come. We'll head to Oyo now, where we get updates on the rescue of the sister of the former Minister of Power, and of course, other efforts to get other victims in captivity, out of the kidnappers' den. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Let's bring in Mr. Olayinka Yolade, Police PRO in Oyo State, joining us from Ibadan, the state capital. PRO, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, our listener.
All right, so we've seen the video. We're grateful that the rescue happened. None of the victims was hurt. We understand 2 persons were neutralized among the kidnappers. So maybe give us a clear picture of what we saw. You know, so many things have happened. People have doubted their state, people have said all kinds of things. But it's an opportunity for the police to give their own report as to what we saw, what we all witnessed on video. I'm sure it was published by the police itself. So tell us how this happened and where did this happen?
So thank you. So the incident happened, the woman was kidnapped on the 3rd alongside her 2 sons while she was dropping them in school. And ever since then, on the directive of the Inspector General of Police, IGP Olatunji Disu, PSC Daga, NPM, the Commissioner of Police immediately coordinated a rescue operation together in conjunction with the operative or the Force Intelligence Department, IRT operatives. And since then, we've been on the trail of the perpetrator. Of course, one of the perpetrators by name, popularly called Oloro, has been on the command watch list. The operatives continue to trail him until his eventual arrest on Thursday. After his arrest and a interrogation, he continued to cooperate with the operatives, which led to arrest of another of his conspirator, called Dari, popularly called Solution here in Ibadan. The 3 of them operated and they explained how the operation was carried out. So they began the operations around May of this month when Dari, Solution, popularly called Solution, approached a personal assistant to the family, to one of the known person in the family, and all of them conspired to kidnap the mother of the victim. And this, upon several other analysis of their digital footprints, we were able to discover that they had their lifestyle, their routines surfilled, and they had details of their activities. Our initial plan was to kidnap the mother. However, they realized that it was the driver that usually take them to school, and they changed their plan to go for the kids. Unfortunately for them, or luckily for them, that day it was the mother that dropped them in school, and they swung into action, adopted them, and took them to then an unknown location. So the operative continued intelligence-led operation, leaving no stone unturned in ensuring that they were rescued on earth, because that was the mandate and the directive of the Inspector General of Police. And we've been on that until on the 6th at 7:30, when their hideout was stormed at Ayegun here in Ibadan. And upon citing the operatives, one of the gang member who was on the lookout, identified by the name Kelechi, who had traveled from Lagos to come and participate in this operation, opened fire on the operative, and the operatives professionally and with tactical precision neutralized him and his the second, who was also there to give a covering fire for him. Neutralized the 2 of them, recovered their pump-action rifle, and they moved into, like you see in the video that was, of course, that gone viral there. They were able to rescue the mother and the 2 sons. They arrested one of the accomplices in the operation.
You know, this points to a trend we have seen in kidnapping such as this, where someone close to the victims or the victim is usually fingered as part of the gang or those who conspired to kidnap. So you're saying that someone close to the family was a part of this?
Of course. Someone close to the family who happened to be a personal assistant by name Shegun was one of those who were picked. He was the one that was first approached by Dari to let them, give them an inside information of how the family lives, their lifestyle, their routine, and all of that.
So, wow. And I know that you're still in the process of investigating. So as they say, they're suspects. There will be the whole court process to get conviction and the rest. So what is the motive here? Because there are reports that perhaps campaign materials are found in one of the vehicles linked to the kidnappers. So is this political? Is this pure, trying to get a ransom? What exactly is the motive that you found so far?
I would not want to preempt investigation. The investigation is still ongoing. The suspects are in custody. They are undergoing investigation. We are still on the trail of the rest of them that escaped, because we realized that's at the day the incident happened. 4 of them were in the vehicle, but there were 6 in number who carry out this dastardly act. We are still on the trail of the remaining 2. So I won't want to preempt investigation and say, okay, it's politically motivated, it's for financial purposes. I wouldn't want to preempt. But I will tell you that investigation is ongoing. Whatever it is, we are going to get to the root of this and ensure that this does not happen again.
So from what you're saying now, there were weapons found with these, kidnappers. What do we know about how they get these weapons? And besides the insider who was part of this kidnap, who are their sponsors?
Thank you. Like guys, when your colleague as I said, the investigation is still ongoing. We are going to cut our teeth and dot our eyes. We will ensure that no tone is left unturned. That's why I said, look, these guys, whosoever that is sponsoring them, whosoever that is responsible, whatsoever connections they have, whosoever that is involved with this, they all will be arrested and they will face a court of the law.
All right, so it will be remiss of us not to talk about if there are any updates of the Orire local government abductees. And over the weekend, reports have begun to emerge about the conditions for release, put out by the kidnappers, part of which would be deposit of 1 billion naira in a particular account outside Nigeria, the altering of or your state laws to favor them. Confirm to us that that is the case. And is there anything else that, is an update as to the negotiations with these kidnappers?
For us in Oyo State Police Command, for us, the Nigerian Police Force, we do not participate in any whether some negotiation or not. Our own is to ensure that these kidnapped victims, these adopted people, students, together with their teacher, are rescued on lot and united with family. And those who are responsible for this face the product of the law. I wouldn't want to speak to whatsoever they are demanding. I'm not privy to terms of negotiations today. But what I know, and I know I'm certain of, is that we are exploiting both options, both kinetic and non-kinetic options, and we will ensure that these kids are rescued on lot and united with family, and those who are responsible face the product of it.
Let's talk about that video. Some people have said a lot of things about the video. Some said it is staged. It is, several words have been used because the boy, his countenance, he wasn't looking afraid. He was looking like he was smiling. Somebody came out from the ceiling. So give us, I'm sure you've seen the comments. What's your response to those comments?
My response to those kind of comments, that people should begin to trust in the system. People should begin to appreciate the effort of the operatives, people that put their life on the line. I told you that the member of the gangs that were on the lookout open fire on the operatives. People are not even concerned about them opening fire on the operatives. The infantry open fire on the operatives who are trying to ensure that other lives are secure. These are the prices Nigerian police force officers pay on a daily basis. So people should look at that rather than trying to be sarcastic, rather than trying to look for something where it is not. For me, we were there at the scene yesterday. If it was such, I don't think anybody will allow his family member to be taken for 5 days or so to an unknown location, and then thereafter call in some people to come on stage. I don't know if you understand that. Look, I don't want to speak to that, but I want to say one thing. People should begin against the ethnic lines and religious biases or whatsoever. People should begin to trust the system and cooperate with the law enforcement operatives who are putting their life on the line.
So 2 questions in one. Who put out the video? Why was there a need to put out that video?
Of course, the same way you're talking about the video, I also saw the video. I'm not too certain of where the video came from. But of course, I can confirm that it was the video footage of the operation that took place at that place, because we had the scene yesterday.
So the question again is, was it the police officer that put out the video or someone else?
That's the question I'm asking you. Where you got the video from?
No, we saw it online. I'm sure you saw the video. So I'm asking, did the video come from the police?
Online, like you say, cyberspace is a free space. Anybody can put anything there. But I'm sure I wouldn't know who first posted the video. So I don't know how the video got out.
As the police asked the question as to where that video is originated from?
Question will be asked as video where and how the video was posted, who posted it, whether the authority was given for the person to post such a video. At least, look, we have internal procedure, we have how things work here. We do our things with the rule of law, with extant law and the Police Act.
So I would take it from you now that the police did not authorize the posting of that video. Is that what you're saying in essence?
I didn't post the video, so I wouldn't know who posted the video. So that's what I'm saying.
All right.
Well, being the Police Public Relations Officer of Oyo State, we only expect that it's something that you should know and be able to tell us whether or not the Oyo State Police Command authorized the release of that video. But let's get to another very important matter. Based on the modus operandi of these kidnappers and the concern about, the increasing presence of bandits in Oyo State, in Oyo Forest, what counsel do you have, especially for residents in Oyo State, on how to be cautious, about security and how to protect themselves?
Of course, I wouldn't advise anybody taking arms against the state or perhaps. But I would say definitely that everybody we need to be cautious of our environment because this like this one that was on cover, the hideout is in the middle of a community. The house is surrounded by other houses, and nobody at any point call our attention to it. There are two activities that take place in this place, and several other incidences like that. So I would say people want to be conscious of their environment. For those of us who have AIDS, PA workers, domestic workers, and all of that, we should all try as much as we can to do background check on who is working with us. And for us, who drives on a daily basis, it's a thing we can do. To only check our mirror, look and see if anybody is trading us, because we have a detailed operational the operations of this gang, how they trail the family, check their lifestyle, their routines, and all of that. So for us, I would advise every good citizen should always cooperate with the police, give relevant information, credible information, timely, for us to act efficiently. However, on their own part, it owns a duty to always ensure that they are aware and cautious of their environment so as they can quickly relate whatsoever that is unusual to the police.
And I want us to end this conversation on maybe some hopeful note for those who are expecting their children and family members to return as well in the Orire kidnapping. And I want you to give an assurance from the police, because for the Adelabu family kidnapping, they were kidnapped on June the 3rd, rescued June the 6th. That's 3-4 days, right? But for the Orire, it's been 3 weeks now. So I want you to give an assurance. Is the police, particularly in Oyo State, deploying as much attention, manpower, and the rest to rescue the Orire victims as much as it did for the Adelabu family, or is it doing more? So give us that assurance so we can at least give some hope to the family members as we wind down.
To leave nothing in doubt, we have deployed the Nigerian Police Force, Oyo State Police Command, even at the federal level, have deployed, including with other security agencies, the Nigerian Army, the DSS, the non-state actor, the Amotekun and the like. We deployed everything necessary, more than whatsoever we deployed for the operation rescue of Mrs. Adigoke. However, we assure the good people of government and Oyo State at large that they should remain calm. We rest assured that the Oyo State Police Command, in collaboration with other security agencies, we are doing everything possible to ensure that the aborted kids and their teacher are rescued or not, reunite with the family, and those responsible are arrested and they face the full wrath of the law.
Olayinka Ayolande, the Police Public Relations Officer of Oyo State, thank you for coming on the program. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talking about the intersection between law and politics, where there's a court judgment that has, what do you call it, invalidated or declared illegal the purchase of vehicles to members of the National Assembly in the tune of the millions that you're aware of due to a procurement issue, constitutional issue, and public trust. A lawyer will help us break it down in just a moment. Stay with us.
Well, this is a case that was instituted about the start of the life of the 10th Assembly in August 2023 by the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP. And Well, we have now gotten a judgment. Well, the judgment was given in May, but the certified true copy was cited just over the weekend. And the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos has now declared unlawful the National Assembly's controversial 110 billion naira vehicle and allowance schemes, ruling that the spending of 40 billion naira on 465 vehicles for lawmakers and 70 billion naira in support allowances for the newly elected members at that time breached procurement laws, constitutional obligations, and the public trust. It's a very, very interesting case, and we have joining us on the program to walk us through this, the implication, whether it can be retrospective in that sense, is legal practitioner Mr. Malaki Ogumaju. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the program.
I'm delighted to be here again. Good morning.
Well, the court has made a pronouncement, but this is 2026. It was instituted 2023. And you know how they say that water may have passed under the bridge. So how does this work, first of all? Let's see how to operationalize this judgment. And is it law now, or is maybe a step forward in the right direction?
Good question. I'd like to start by commending those who found it worthy to go to court, in particular the SERAP and the judge, the Federal High Court, so to speak. On the part of SERAP, you could see the creativity, the legal fireworks that culminated in that conviction that we could tweak the law by instituting this kind of matter. Because generally, what used to be is, oh, no, you can't do anything. An arm of government cannot dictate to the other how to operate. In other words, the judiciary cannot adjudicate with respect to legislative activities. But this judgment has creatively found a way to situate the law within the context of the bigger, larger polity of Nigeria. And what it has done is to say, you can't use that as a shield where there are issues of illegality. In other words, even if the National Assembly has its autonomy, so to speak, you cannot be operating arbitrarily and then expect that anyone who resists that. In fact, and I'm putting out that as the defendant brought that up by way of preliminary objection, and it was overruled. So I seriously commend SERAP. I commend the judiciary, the Federal High Court. It will be interesting to see what happens next, if there's an appeal. But one would advise that there should not be an appeal, because we're all in this country together. Now, coming to your question, you could see that this is a novelty, and it's in progress in terms of what happens next. I think that the civil society groups, advocacy bodies, should take it up from here and make a serious case out of this judgment, because I know, and I have appeared repeatedly before Justice Bogoro, my Lord Justice
Bogoro.
Like I told one of our senior professional colleagues this morning while coming here, I am so fascinated by that. I didn't see that much fire in her. It takes so long to come this hard and clear against institutions of government. But I'm sure he didn't do it sentimentally. He did it according to the law, because she was certain. Sorry, my Lord Justice Bogoro was certain regarding the constitutional implications of what they did. She touched on the Public Procurement Act. She touched on the Code of Conduct for Public Officers, and so on and so forth. And wondered why such an arbitrary behavior could be envisaged, let alone accommodated within the present economic realities of the country. I think that the bigger point my Lord made is that, except until you comply strictly with the law, such an arbitrary behavior can no longer be accepted. And that's where we are now.
And as Kade said earlier that, this is coming well over 3 years after the judgment was, nearly 3 years, judgment was instituted. So is it coming after the fact? And in terms of implementation, where do we go from here? After the fact being that those purchases have already been made in the life of this 10th Assembly. So how will implementation be executed?
So you find that in part of the judgment itself. I haven't read the certified true copy, meaning that, like you said in your intro, it was cited yesterday, was just as persons with deep interest, you try to get as much as you can from what is in the public. But the judgment talks about a direct admonition on both Akpabio as the Senate President and his counterpart, Dr. Tajuddin
Abbas,
to ensure, moving forward, strict compliance with these extant statutory provisions I have mentioned, i.e. the Public Procurement Act, in fact, Section 54, Subsection 4, the Constitution itself that speaks about the separation of powers, and then even the conduct, the Code of Conduct for public officers. But I'm saying, if you talk about the 3 years timeline, well, for an action that is most likely instituted through originating summons, that's what we call it, just for the declaration and interpretation of, you could say 3 years, but it's within time. It's within time. The big news is that we now have this. This is what we call case law. In fact, Nigerians should be reminded that there was a similar case less than 3 years ago. The judgment was less than 3 years ago. The one instituted by our friend Monday Obani. In short, it was Femi Falana who argued that case. Similar case on the same point. So where we are now is that within the context of law, this matter has been situated and largely settled. Namely, that you cannot use legislative autonomy as a shield. It does not operate as a shield against arbitrariness. In other words, you cannot, on the basis of the fact that you are legislating for the country, begin to act arbitrarily in a way that undermines the laws you passed yourself. And here is the bigger point, as one who is trying to analyze this situation. Even the business of budgeting needs to be interrogated somewhat in a way to emphasize the beauty or the essence of this judgment. The Constitution talks about the executive laying the budget. What it means is that they prepare it, they bring it before the National Assembly. The National Assembly vets it through their legislative powers to confirm whether, for instance, they say this building will cost 2 billion naira. And the legislature says that even in Ghana, similar building is less than that. So you, the legislature, cannot, like we see these days, hype that price, cannot increase that. You cannot do that yourself in terms of the appropriation. But what we see these days is that it is the National Assembly, besides the laying, it is the National Assembly that determines what they collect in terms of these allowances. It is the National Assembly that sees what the executive brings. Instead of 5 billion, they take it to 10 billion. So you are practically usurping the powers of the executive by determining, and what is more, Section 70 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is very short sentence there. It says that the fixing the salaries of the members of the Senate and House of Representatives shall be determined by the Fiscal Mobilization Allocation Commission. In other words, it does not lie in the mouth of members of the National Assembly to fix their own salaries, their own allowances. But that is what we have had.
So is it not going to touch on the powers of appropriation of the National Assembly?
Just say that again.
This judgment, isn't it touching on the powers of appropriation of the National Assembly?
No,
and won't they find it as grounds of appeal?
No, well, grounds of appeal is always there to be explored, but the law remains the law.
So let's how did we get here? Mm-hmm. We got here because vehicles were, so I want to know what the I haven't seen the CDC, so I'm also I'm reserving my comment. What is the law, the judgment trying to address in specific? Because what got here was the fact that vehicles were to be bought for the senators and to the members of the assembly. Mm-hmm. In fact, I think it was the spokesperson of the assembly that said that they are operational and official vehicles, not personal gifts, and remain the property of the National Assembly during their members' tenure. So is this judgment frowning at members of the National Assembly getting operational vehicle, one, or is it frowning at the amount used to buy these vehicles, or there was challenge with the procurement process itself?
Correct. So let me take it from your preliminary question. How did we get here? This amount, this figure, cumulatively 110 billion, was found or was appropriated in the supplementary budget of 2022. Supplementary, after the main one. And for them, it was to be for the procurement of the vehicles and what they call support allowances. So I've quoted the law now to say the salaries and allowances of members of the Senate and House of Representatives, the word is shall. That word in law is peremptory, it's mandatory. You don't have room to maneuver. Shall be fixed by the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission. Once that is certain, the question would be, was this appropriation by the National Assembly, i.e. Senate and House of Rep, was it appropriate in the eye of the law? This time around, it's not just the law, statutory provisions or we're talking about the ground of the Constitution. So what the court has done, because that now goes to your question, is to say that you cannot rely on your legislative autonomy and ride roughshod on the Public Procurement Act, which is the law we have today to deal with issues of accountability, transparency, and due process. Section 54, subsection 4 of the Public Procurement Act, 2007. It also frowns at your own oath of office. My Lord Justice Bogoro was also wondering about the fate of budgeting itself. To what extent will it be the responsibility of the National Assembly to do the work of the executive and that of the legislature all together?
So I was saying in essence, for instance, just picking back from what you said, from this judgment, if the National Assembly sees the reason to increase the budget as presented to them by the executive, the right thing to do is to revert rather than increase on their own.
The National Assembly cannot do the work of the executive. That is preparing. It is the executive that lays it before the National Assembly. The National Assembly, as a watchdog, is essentially to moderate the possible excesses of the executive. So you cannot sit in the chambers and increase the figures proposed. That's a proposal. You cannot.
I know.
You can do well if you if you say it should be reduced, then you cannot and pass it. Then you are becoming a judge in your own case.
Mr. Gumada, it's a very interesting conversation.
I find it very
interesting. This judgment is quite telling because the judge, Justice Bokoro, said, I have taken judicial notice of the economic realities in Nigeria and the widespread financial hardship affecting Nigerian citizens. In this context, the allocation of 110 billion naira for the benefit of lawmakers demonstrates a failure to prioritize national interests. And it goes on. But we have just less than a minute to wind up, Mr. Okumado. There's always been that call for some sort of autonomy when it comes to finances. For even the judiciary, right? You should not have a case where the executive is one building houses for judges, procuring cars for them. They say that it messes up that whole sense of independence. And the National Assembly could well say, well, we need to have some power of the purse too, so we don't have to rely on an executive arm to get us the money that we need. Now, your time is 30 seconds. Does this align?
Two things. If they wish to achieve that, they should pass a proposal for the amendment of the Constitution. As the law stands today, they cannot. And we have read out the sections of the Constitution.
And the judiciary too does not have that autonomy of the purse.
And the judiciary has not been found wanted, at least on this score. Yeah. We have identified the legislature, Senate, and House of Representatives running foul of this constitutional arrangement and the statutory provisions that regulate what they ought to have done. So if they wish to achieve that, they should be thinking about the amendment. And the amendment should not be carried. It should not be approved because there is a need to have serious safeguards on all of these aspects of our national lives. Otherwise, we won't be practicing democracy. People will perfunctorily abuse their powers.
We hope this will be a landmark case that will then guide their actions moving forward. Mr. Malaki Gumadu, always a pleasure having you. We hope that this does better for our democracy and spending.
Very healthy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, there you have it. That's been the show for today. We hope to report more cherry news for you tomorrow. I'm Kayode Okikili.
Speaking of which, here's a reminder that the Oyo 46 are still in kidnappers' den. The 40 kidnapped from a Daunio community in Ileje Meje local government area of Ekiti State are still in the kidnappers' den. I wonder if the other, abductees from Kwara have been released. So this is a reminder to the administration. These people are still in the kidnappers' den. We hope to tell cheery news about them in the coming days. Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Kauka.
And I second that reminder by Bukola. Thank you for watching as well. Bye-bye.